3 balls of clay, similar thing. I'm going to make my components and take them off the wheel. We'll start with the top. I haven't done this for a very long time, alright? So I'm just giving myself a disclaimer. I've got my mask on now. No, it's just really weird, it's so close to the pot. I'll probably end up catching it on the top of the pot. As you're all 2 metres away. So I'm going to do the top first. So obviously we need to go all the way to the wheel head again. Air bubble in the top of my clay. This time I'm going to try and make sure that I can get my hand down to where I'm going to join it. And when I used to do this technique, I would probably spend a little bit more time than I'm going to try and demonstrate this to you now. So I've done a little
hold your breath.
Done my little chamfer again.
What is on the board?
What's that? Oh, the wire, yeah, I've got that. Hold your breath.
At that point, I get really frustrated because I throw the light pot, pick it up, and there's finger marks on the way.
Who was I talking to? I was talking to David yesterday, wasn't I? About like when I first taught you in the first year, I mentioned about your knowledge of actually how to hold the clay and how to handle the clay, not to squeeze it too much. You know, like if you squeeze it too much, you'll put a dent in it. Those sorts of things. Just by the doing, you learn that actually you can pick up a really sloppy pot. If you're controlled, you don't move too fast, you don't apply too much pressure, you can actually pick up very wet objects. And the more you do it, the more you get used to it.
What are you doing now, the middle bit or the bottom bit?
Doing the middle bit.
All the way to the bottom as well?
All the way to the bottom. So there's still going to be some throwing involved in this once I've got this middle bit back on the bottom bit. But yeah, it's centered all the way in. Now one of the hardest things to throw is very tall, narrow shapes, isn't it? So this is actually something that I did in my first part of my part-time third year. Because this technique, which was probably, I don't know how many years ago now, 8 years ago.
Part-time? Did you do it all part-time?
No, I did my HND in the early 90s. Then I worked at Mix for a year after college, then I did loads of other jobs like building, but I still threw pots every year. And then I got work back here, being a study support assistant or non-medical helpers we were called back in the day. And one year Pete said, Tom, why don't you do your top up part-time? So I thought, all right then. So I just did I topped my HND up to a degree, and at the time I thought, it's easy, I'll just turn up, throw a few pots and I'll pass, which I could have done, passed it. And then you start having tutorials with people. One of them was Melanie Brown, and Pete and Mick. They're going, why are you just doing this? This is your chance to do something new. And then I totally changed everything that I did pretty much. And it went from me just turning up to pass a degree to me actually going, this is my opportunity to actually do something. But I did it, I was still doing a full-time job, still working here full-time. It was actually with Neil and Katie. I graduated at the same time as Katie with my degree. We had our exhibition together.
So then after that, did you work at LAN?
No, before that.
Oh.
That was in end of the 90s. So when I left LAN, I was still living with the students. I popped in and actually saw Andy Griff. And Griff said, I'm glad I've seen you. I've got a job for you, starts in January. So I was made redundant just before Christmas, and I came back to Carmarthen and I was working here. So that was my first sort of employment in the college, and it was because of Griff. But in my third year, in the second half, you have to do your enterprise module, don't you? So Pete said, what are you going to do, Tom? I said, I'll look into PGCEs. And he said, right, go and see Julie over in Pibloid. I went over there, somehow she signed me up on the course, and then the rest is history. You've ended up with me. So this is the middle bit. Again, I need to make sure I can get my hands down to that joint. You could do it with a stick, but it's gonna be problematic. And as long as I'm in the ballpark for this top bit, I'm okay because I can adjust that once I've joined it back on a bit. I don't want it to be out here, obviously, so I'm just getting a rough size. Now this one, I'm going to dry off a bit. So again, if you're doing this, nice bucket of water here, wash your hands in it, dry hands off, because it makes much more sense. Rather than getting up and down to the sink, just have a bucket of water next to you to dry your hands off. The other thing I noticed, when you do use these hot air guns, a lot of people go, keep the pot still, and they're like this. Keep the gun still and move the pot. Much easier. Don't want to dry it off too much, just enough so I can pick it up. Now, what happens, and you'll notice, if you use a hot air gun, you'll dry it off, and you can dry that outside surface a lot. By the next time I pick that up, the water on the inside of it, okay, will have come back out to the surface, so it's got softer again. So you have this little window of time to be able to pick it up and move it off the wheel. So don't dry it, walk off, then come back and go pick it up, because you'll probably end up squishing your whole pot.